The windshield wipers screamed against the ice, but Cara Miles could barely see 3 feet ahead. The blizzard had turned Highway 89 into a white void, and her ancient Honda shuddered with every gust that slammed against its frame. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles bone white, and squinted through the chaos of snow and darkness. "Come on, just 5 more miles," she whispered, her breath fogging in the freezing cabin. The heater had died somewhere between the diner and the turnoff to her road, and now her fingers were going numb inside her threadbare gloves. That's when she saw it. A dark shape in the ditch, half buried in snow. At first, she thought it was a fallen branch or maybe a deer, but as her headlights swept across it, she saw the outline of a coat, a person. Cara's heart lurched. She hit the brakes too hard, and the Honda fishtailed before sliding to a stop at an angle across the empty road. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at the shape through the swirling snow. Every rational part of her brain screamed to keep driving. It was almost midnight. The storm was getting worse. She had exactly $43 in her checking account and couldn't afford to miss tomorrow's morning shift. But the shape wasn't moving. "Damn it," Cara muttered, shoving open her door. The wind nearly ripped it from her hands as she stumbled out into the storm. The cold hit her like a physical blow, stealing her breath. She half ran, half slid down into the ditch, her boots sinking into knee-deep snow. The woman was elderly, maybe 70, with silver hair matted against her face. Her eyes were closed, and her skin had taken on a frightening blue-gray tinge. She wore an expensive-looking wool coat, now soaked through, and her hands were bare, fingers curled against the cold. Ma'am, can you hear me?" Cara dropped to her knees, snow immediately soaking through her jeans. She pressed 2 fingers against the woman's neck, searching for a pulse. There, faint but steady. Getting the woman back to the car took everything Cara had. She wasn't a large woman herself, and the elderly stranger was dead weight. By the time she dragged her up the embankment and wrestled her into the passenger seat, Cara's muscles were screaming, and her lungs burned from the frigid air. The drive to her cabin normally took 10 minutes. Tonight, it took 45. Cara's hands shook on the wheel, partly from cold and partly from adrenaline. She kept glancing at the woman beside her, watching for any sign of consciousness. Nothing. Just shallow, rattling breaths that scared Cara more than silence would have. Her cabin appeared through the snow like a lighthouse through fog. Small, weathered, barely more than a shack, but it was home and it was warm. Cara had left the space heater running, something she normally couldn't afford to do, but thank God she had tonight. Getting the woman inside and onto the couch was another ordeal. Cara's back screamed in protest as she half carried, half dragged her through the door. Once inside, she worked quickly, her EMT training from a community college course she'd taken years ago flooding back. Strip the wet clothes, wrap in blankets. Warm, but not too warm. Check vitals. The woman's pulse was stronger now, her breathing more regular. Cara boiled water for tea and heated up leftover chicken soup from the diner. She knelt beside the couch, holding a spoonful of broth to the woman's pale lips. "Come on," she murmured. "Just a little. You need to warm up from the inside." The woman's eyelids fluttered, her lips parted slightly, and Cara managed to get some soup into her mouth. Then more. After several spoonfuls, the woman's eyes finally opened. Pale blue, surprisingly sharp despite her ordeal. "Where?" Her voice was a rasp. "You're safe. I found you on Highway 89. You were in a ditch. Do you remember what happened?" The woman's eyes moved slowly around the cabin, taking in the cramped space, the worn furniture, the stack of unpaid bills on the counter that Cara hadn't had time to hide. Something flickered across her face, an expression Cara couldn't quite read. "I fell, was walking, the storm." She closed her eyes again. "Thank you. What's your name? Do you have family nearby? I should call someone." "Evelyn," a pause. "No family, no calls, please." Cara frowned. "You need a doctor. You were hypothermic." "No doctors." Evelyn's hand shot out with surprising strength, gripping Cara's wrist. Her blue eyes were suddenly intense, almost frightened. "Please, just rest. That's all I need." Against her better judgment, Cara nodded. "Okay, you can sleep in my bed. I'll take the couch." I couldn't. You can and you will. I'm not the one who was unconscious in a snowbank 20 minutes ago. Cara helped Evelyn to the small bedroom and got her settled under 3 quilts. Within minutes, the older woman was asleep, her breathing deep and even. Cara stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching her. Something about this felt wrong. Off. Evelyn's clothes, though wet, were expensive. Her hands, though cold, showed signs of regular manicures. And that coat, Cara didn't know much about high-end fashion, but she recognized quality when she saw it. What was a wealthy woman doing wandering Highway 89 in the middle of a blizzard? Cara shook her head and closed the door. Not her business. She'd done the right thing, the human thing. In the morning, she'd figure out the rest. She made a bed on the couch from extra blankets and tried to sleep, but exhaustion warred with unease. Around 3 in the morning, she jolted awake to a sound. Footsteps, soft, careful, moving through the cabin. Cara lay perfectly still, her heart hammering. Through slitted eyes, she watched Evelyn's silhouette move through the darkness. The older woman stood before the small bookshelf where Cara kept her few precious items, photos of her parents, both gone now, a trophy from her high school track days, a framed newspaper clipping about the diner where she'd worked for 5 years. Evelyn picked up the frame with her parents' photo, studied it for a long moment, then set it down carefully. She moved to the window, peering out at the still falling snow. Her lips moved, whispering something Cara couldn't hear. Then, just as quietly, she returned to the bedroom and closed the door. Cara lay awake until dawn, unable to shake the image of Evelyn examining her life like a curator in a museum. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains, gray and weak. Cara sat up, her neck stiff from the couch, and immediately looked toward the bedroom. The door was open. Evelyn? She stood, her muscles protesting. Evelyn! The bedroom was empty. The bed was made with military precision, the quilts folded at perfect right angles. On the pillow lay a piece of paper, folded with the same careful precision. Cara's hands trembled as she unfolded it. No words, just a symbol, a circle with 3 intersecting lines, elegant and geometric. Something about it tugged at her memory, but she couldn't place it. She checked the cabin. Evelyn's wet clothes were gone. The front door was unlocked. In the fresh snow outside, Cara could see a single set of footprints leading away from the cabin toward the road. Then nothing. The falling snow had already begun to fill them in. What the hell? Cara stood in her doorway, the mysterious paper in her hand, watching the footprints disappear. Every instinct screamed that something was very wrong. But what could she do? The woman had left. She was fine, apparently. Cara had done her good deed, and that was that. She went back inside to get ready for her morning shift, trying to convince herself that everything was normal. The convoy arrived at noon. Cara was washing dishes in her kitchen, still in her waitress uniform, when she heard the engines. Multiple engines, big ones, growling up her driveway like mechanical wolves. She looked out the window and felt her stomach drop. 3 black SUVs, the kind with tinted windows and chrome accents that probably cost more than her cabin. They formed a semicircle in her yard, doors opening in synchronized precision. Men in suits emerged, 6 of them, all wearing identical dark overcoats and expressions that suggested they were very good at their jobs. Behind them, from the middle vehicle, stepped a man who commanded attention without saying a word. He was tall, maybe 40, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples. His suit probably cost more than Cara made in 6 months, but it was his face that held her frozen at the window, sharp, aristocratic, with eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. He moved like someone who'd never been told no in his life. Cara's heart was pounding as she opened the door before they could knock. Better to meet this head-on than let them think she was hiding. Cara Miles? The tall man's voice was smooth, cultured, with an edge of steel underneath. Who's asking? My name is Daniel Hawthorne. He pulled out a leather wallet, flashed what looked like an ID, though Cara couldn't read it from where she stood. I'm looking for a woman who may have been helped by someone in this area last night. An elderly woman, silver hair, about 5'6". Cara's grip tightened on the doorframe. Why are you looking for her? Because she's my mother. His eyes held hers, searching. And if you're the person who helped her, then you may have saved her life. The world tilted slightly. Cara had expected a lot of things, but not this. Your mother? Evelyn Hawthorne. She has a condition. She sometimes wanders. Last night, during the storm, his composure cracked slightly just for a moment. We've been searching since midnight. Someone at the gas station in town said they saw a woman matching your description pull someone from a ditch on Highway 89. Cara's mind raced. The expensive coat, the manicured hands, the way Evelyn had studied her cabin like she was cataloging details for a report. She was here, Cara admitted. I found her collapsed on the highway, brought her back, warmed her up, gave her food and a place to sleep. But she was gone this morning. Something shifted in Daniel Hawthorne's expression. Relief, yes, but also something else. Calculation. Did she say anything? Do anything unusual? She said her name was Evelyn. She didn't want me to call anyone. And she left. Cara hesitated, her hand unconsciously moving to her pocket where she'd stuffed the paper with the symbol. Something told her to keep that detail to herself. She left early. I don't know where she went. May I come in? I'd like to hear everything if you don't mind, and he gestured to one of his men, who immediately produced a tablet. I'd like to thank you properly. Cara stepped back, letting him enter while his security team remained outside. Her cabin had never felt smaller than it did with Daniel Hawthorne standing in it, his presence seeming to absorb all the oxygen in the room. She told him everything. Well, almost everything. The discovery, the rescue, the soup and blankets, the morning disappearance. She left out the midnight wandering and the symbol. Daniel listened without interrupting, his face carefully neutral. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Miss Miles, do you mind if I ask what you do for a living? The question threw her. I'm a waitress at Ruby's Diner in town. And this cabin, you own it. Barely. I'm 3 months behind on property taxes. The admission came out before she could stop it, and she immediately regretted the vulnerability. Daniel nodded slowly, as if confirming something. He tapped his tablet, then turned it to show her. On the screen was a bank transfer form with her name on it, and a number that made Cara's breath catch. $50,000. This is for helping my mother, Daniel said, and there will be more. I'd like to pay off your property taxes, make some repairs to your cabin. It looks like the roof needs work. And, he gestured around, I understand you've been saving to open your own restaurant? Cara felt like she was falling. How do you know that? I make it my business to know things, Miss Miles, especially about people who help my family. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. You showed extraordinary kindness to a stranger. You asked for nothing in return. That's rare. My mother has an instinct for people, and if she trusted you enough to stay here, he paused. Let me help you the way you helped her. It was too much, too fast, too perfect. I don't understand, Cara said slowly. This is generous, more than generous, but why? I just did what anyone would do, but most people wouldn't. Daniel's voice was soft now, almost sad. Most people would have driven past, or called 911 and left it at that. You brought her into your home, your very modest home. You gave her your bed. He looked around again. And you asked for nothing. Cara's head was spinning. Where is she now? Evelyn. Safe. At our estate outside of Whitefish. She's resting. Daniel stood, extending his hand. Think about my offer, Miss Miles. You have my card. Call me when you're ready to discuss the details. After they left, Cara stood in her cabin for a full 10 minutes without moving, staring at the business card in her hand. Daniel Hawthorne, CEO, Hawthorne Enterprises, a Seattle address and a phone number. She pulled out her phone and did what she should have done that morning. She Googled Hawthorne Enterprises. The results made her sit down hard. Billion-dollar conglomerate, real estate, tech investments, pharmaceutical research. Daniel Hawthorne was worth more than most small countries, and Evelyn Hawthorne, Cara clicked on her image results, was a former socialite who'd mostly disappeared from public view about 15 years ago after some kind of family tragedy. But it was another result, buried on the third page, that made Cara's blood run cold. An old article from a Montana newspaper dated 1987. Hawthorne Foundation under investigation. Symbol linked to alleged money laundering scheme. And there, in a grainy photo accompanying the article, was the symbol. The exact same geometric circle with 3 intersecting lines that Evelyn had left on Cara's pillow. Cara's hands shook as she unfolded the paper again, comparing it to the image on her phone. Identical. What had Evelyn been trying to tell her? The knock came at 7 that evening, just as the sun was setting behind the mountains. Cara jumped, her heart racing. She'd spent the afternoon falling down internet rabbit holes, trying to piece together a puzzle she didn't fully understand. But when she opened the door, it wasn't Daniel Hawthorne's security team. It was Evelyn. The older woman stood on Cara's porch, dressed completely differently from the night before. An elegant cashmere coat, leather gloves, her silver hair styled perfectly. She looked like she'd walked out of a magazine spread, but her eyes were the same, and right now they held an emotion Cara recognized. Fear. "May I come in?" Evelyn's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "Please, we don't have much time." Cara stepped back, her mind reeling. "What's going on? Your son was here. He's looking for you. He said you were safe at some estate." "I'm sure that's what he said." Evelyn moved quickly to the window, peering out at the darkening driveway. "And I was there, but I left. Again. Because we need to talk, and I can't do that where they might be listening." "They? Who's they?" Evelyn turned to face her, and in the fading light, she suddenly looked much older, tired. "I owe you the truth, Cara. You saved my life, but not the way Daniel told you." "What do you mean?" "I wasn't lost in that storm by accident. I wasn't wandering because of some medical condition." Evelyn's laugh was bitter. "I was running from someone who wants me silenced. And last night, when you found me, I was about 30 minutes from freezing to death exactly the way they wanted." The cabin felt very small suddenly, very isolated. "Who wants you dead?" "That's complicated, but the symbol I left you, you recognized it, didn't you?" "You looked it up." Cara nodded slowly, her hand moving to her pocket. "The article from 1987. Money laundering. The Hawthorne Foundation. Not just money laundering." Evelyn sat down heavily on the couch, suddenly looking every one of her 70-some years. "The foundation was a front for much worse, and I have proof. Documents, recordings, names. For 35 years, I've kept it all hidden, waiting for the right moment to expose it." "Why now?" "Because they know I'm dying." Evelyn's voice cracked. "Cancer, stage 4. I have maybe 6 months. And someone in my family, I don't know who, but someone, decided it would be easier to speed up the process than to risk me talking before the end." Cara felt like she was in a movie, except movies didn't make your hands shake like this. "And Daniel? My son loves me, but he's also protective of the family name, the family empire." Evelyn's eyes were sad. "I don't know if he's involved in the attempts on my life. I pray he's not, but I can't take the chance. That's why I came to you." "Me? Why me?" "Because you're not connected to any of this. You have no stake in the Hawthorne empire. You helped me because it was the right thing to do, expecting nothing in return." Evelyn reached out and gripped Cara's hand. "You're stronger than you know, Cara Miles, and I need someone strong, someone outside the family, someone who can't be bought or intimidated." Before Cara could respond, headlights swept across the cabin walls. Evelyn froze. "Is that?" "I don't know." They both moved to the window. The vehicle pulling up wasn't one of the black SUVs from earlier. It was a Mercedes sedan, silver, with government plates. "We have to go," Evelyn whispered urgently. "Right now. Do you have a back door?" "Evelyn, what's happening?" "Those plates. That's Uncle Richard's car. My late husband's brother. He's the one." "I'm sure he's the one trying to kill me. Please, Cara. I know this is insane, but please trust me." Cara had about 3 seconds to make a decision that would change her life. She could open the door, let this government-plated car take Evelyn away, collect her $50,000, and go back to her quiet, struggling life. Or she could trust the terrified old woman gripping her arm. Through the kitchen, Cara said, making her choice. There's a trail behind the cabin that leads to the main road, but we have to move now. They went out the back as the front doorbell rang. Cara grabbed her car keys and her phone, and they half ran through the snow toward where her Honda was parked on the side of the cabin. The temperature had dropped again, and her breath came out in clouds. They were almost to the car when she heard Daniel's voice. "Mother, stop!" Cara spun. Daniel Hawthorne stood at the corner of the cabin, his expensive coat dusted with snow. But he wasn't alone. Two of his security men flanked him, and they all looked tense. "Please," Daniel called out, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "Whatever she told you, Miss Miles, she's not well. She needs medication. She needs help." "Liar!" Evelyn's voice rang out, stronger than Cara had heard it. "Tell her the truth, Daniel. Tell her why Richard's here. Tell her about the documents." "There are no documents, Mother. This is paranoia. It's the disease." "Then why are you here?" Evelyn demanded. "How did you know to come back? How did you know I'd come back here?" A third figure emerged from around the cabin. An older man, distinguished, with white hair, and a face that might have been kind if not for the cold calculation in his eyes. "Because you're predictable, Evelyn," the man said. "Richard," Cara presumed. "You've always had this romantic notion about finding someone pure, someone untainted by wealth, to be your white knight. But this time," his eyes slid to Cara with contempt, "this time you've just endangered an innocent waitress." "Don't hurt her," Evelyn said quickly. "She doesn't know anything. I didn't tell her anything. But you were about to." Richard moved closer, and Cara saw two more men emerge from the shadows near the car. They were surrounded. "That's the problem with you, Evelyn. You never know when to let things go." Cara's mind was racing, her heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. She'd left her phone in the cabin. Her car keys were in her hand, but they'd never make it to the car before. "Actually," Daniel's voice cut through the tension, and something in his tone made everyone freeze. "I think there's been a miscommunication." He stepped forward, positioning himself between Evelyn and Richard. When he spoke again, his voice was cold, dangerous. "Uncle Richard, I'm going to need you to call off your men. Right now." Richard laughed. "Daniel, don't be foolish. This is family business. This is protecting everything your father built." "Everything my father built was legitimate," Daniel interrupted. "Whatever you and your brother were doing through that foundation in the 80s has nothing to do with him, and it certainly has nothing to do with killing my mother." Silence. Cara could hear her own breathing, ragged and quick. Richard's expression shifted, the mask of civility dropping away. "So she got to you. I should have known. You always were too soft, just like your father." "I've known for 3 months," Daniel said quietly. "Ever since Mother told me she had cancer. Ever since she told me about the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the evidence she's been holding on to. I've been trying to figure out who in the family was desperate enough to kill her for it." "Congratulations. You just confirmed it." Movement from the shadows, but it wasn't Richard's men moving forward. It was Daniel's security team, and they were placing themselves between the two groups. "You're bluffing," Richard said, but his voice wavered. "The FBI is on their way," Daniel continued. "I called them 20 minutes ago when Mother triggered the GPS tracker in the locket I gave her." "You remember that locket, don't you, Mother?" He glanced at Evelyn with something that might have been a smile. "The one I told you to keep with you at all times?" Evelyn's hand went to her throat, where a delicate silver chain glinted in the porch light. "You knew," she breathed. "I knew you'd come here. I knew you'd want to protect Miss Miles by warning her, and I knew that if I was right about Uncle Richard, he'd follow." Daniel's voice hardened. "What I didn't know is that he'd be stupid enough to confirm everything in front of witnesses." The sound of sirens split the air, growing louder. Richard's face went through several expressions: disbelief, rage, then fear. He tried to run, but Daniel's security team moved like choreographed dancers, blocking every exit. Cara stood frozen as police cars and FBI vehicles flooded her driveway, bathing everything in red and blue light. Federal agents emerged, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Richard and his men were on the ground in seconds, being cuffed. Through it all, Daniel stood beside his mother, one arm around her shoulders as she sagged against him. He was speaking to her softly, too quiet for Cara to hear, but she saw Evelyn nod, saw the tears streaming down the older woman's face. An FBI agent approached Cara, asking questions she answered automatically, her body moving through the motions, while her mind tried to process what had just happened. It was nearly midnight before they all left. The agents, the police, Richard and his hired men in various vehicles with bars on the windows. Only Daniel and Evelyn remained, standing beside one of the black SUVs. "I'm sorry," Evelyn said, her voice rough from crying. "I'm so sorry, Cara. I should never have involved you in this." "You thought you were protecting yourself," Cara replied, surprised by how steady her voice was. "And maybe protecting me, too. I was testing him." Evelyn glanced at Daniel. "I told you the truth. I do look for good people. People who help without expecting anything. And when Daniel showed up this afternoon with his offer of money, I needed to know if he was trying to help me or silence me." "I knew you'd test me," Daniel said quietly. "You always do. So I made my offer generous enough that it could be interpreted either way. And I waited to see what you'd do." "You used me as bait," Evelyn accused, but there was no heat in it. "I used the situation," Daniel corrected. "I would never have let anything happen to you, or to Miss Miles." He turned to Cara then, his expression hard to read in the darkness. "The offer I made this afternoon, it stands. All of it. Not as payment for silence or as a bribe, but because my mother was right. You helped when you could have driven past, and because I'm guessing that Richard's men visiting your cabin tonight has scared you enough that you might want to relocate for a while." Cara opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't know what to say. "There's more," Evelyn added softly. "The money Richard was laundering in the 80s. We've spent the last 3 months tracking where it went. Most of it was stolen from rural development programs. Programs meant to help communities like yours." She met Cara's eyes. "I want to make that right, and I want you to help me." "How?" "Start your restaurant, but make it more than that. Make it a community center, job training programs, educational resources. Everything these towns should have had if men like Richard hadn't stolen it." Evelyn's voice grew stronger. "I have 6 months, maybe less. Help me make them count." Cara looked at them both, this unlikely mother and son, connected by blood and now by shared purpose. She thought about her cabin, her dead-end job, her small life. She thought about the terror of tonight, the adrenaline still making her hands shake, and she thought about the elderly woman collapsed in the snow and how easily she could have died there if Cara had made a different choice. "Okay," she said. "Yes, let's do it." The next 3 months passed in a blur. The story broke nationally. Billionaire's brother arrested in attempted murder plot. Evelyn's evidence didn't just implicate Richard, it exposed a network of corruption spanning 4 decades. 6 other people were arrested. Congressional hearings were scheduled. But while the world focused on the scandal, Cara focused on building something new. The old Ruby's Diner was bought by a Hawthorne subsidiary and transformed, not into something sleek and modern, but into something warm and welcoming. The kitchen was upgraded, yes, but the booth stayed, the counter stayed, the soul of the place stayed, and around it, they built more. A computer lab where locals could learn digital skills, a small business incubation space, meeting rooms for community organizations, all funded by the Hawthorne Foundation, the real one, rebuilt from scratch with full transparency. Cara worked 18-hour days driven by a purpose she'd never felt before. Daniel visited weekly from Seattle, teaching her about management and nonprofit structures. Evelyn came whenever she was strong enough, which was less and less as spring turned to summer. The day they opened, Evelyn was there in a wheelchair, wrapped in blankets despite the warm June air. She'd lost weight, her skin paper thin, but her eyes were bright. "You did this," she said to Cara as they stood in front of the newly unveiled sign, the Evelyn Hawthorne Community Center. "We did this," Cara corrected. "You, me, Daniel, a lot of people." "No." Evelyn gripped her hand with surprising strength. "You. That night on the highway, you could have made a different choice. Everything started with your choice. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew 300 people, locals, press, some dignitaries from Helena. Daniel gave a speech about second chances and community investment. The mayor gave a speech about resilience, but it was Evelyn who got the standing ovation when she was wheeled to the microphone. "I spent 35 years afraid," she said, her voice thin but caring. "Afraid of what would happen if I spoke up, afraid of losing my family's approval, afraid of being alone." She paused, looking directly at Cara. "And then I met someone who wasn't afraid, someone who saw a stranger in trouble and just helped. No calculations, no fear, just action." She gestured around at the building, the crowd, the transformation. This is what happens when one person decides to be brave, when one person decides that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. I hope this center helps hundreds of people, but even if it only helped one, even if it only reminded me that there are still good people in the world, it would be enough. Cara's eyes burned with tears. Beside her, she felt Daniel's hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. That night, after the crowds had gone and the press had packed up their cameras, the three of them sat in one of the new booths, sharing coffee and pie. Evelyn could only manage a few bites, but she smiled with each one. "I have something for you," she said to Cara, pulling out a small envelope. "Open it later, when you're alone." "Evelyn, please, just promise me you'll open it," Cara promised. 2 weeks later, Evelyn Hawthorne passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by family. The funeral was private, but the memorial service was held at the center that bore her name. Over 500 people attended. That night, alone in her new apartment above the center, an apartment that was warm and secure in hers, Cara finally opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in Evelyn's spidery handwriting and a smaller envelope labeled "For the Board." Cara read the letter first. "Dear Cara, if you're reading this, I've finally found peace. Thank you for giving me these last months. Thank you for showing me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action despite it. The enclosed document officially names you as Director of the Hawthorne Community Initiative. Daniel knows and approves. The board expects you in Seattle next month to discuss expansion to other rural communities across Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. You're going to do great things, you already have. With love and gratitude, Evelyn." Cara sat on her couch, the letter shaking in her hands, and cried. Not from grief, though she grieved, but from the overwhelming realization that her life had changed completely because of one choice on one snowy night. She'd saved Evelyn, but maybe Evelyn had saved her too. A year later, on a cold December evening, Cara stood in the parking lot of the Evelyn Hawthorne Community Center and looked up at the mountains. Snow was falling again, soft and steady, dusting the peaks white. Behind her, through the warm-lit windows, she could see people inside. An adult education class, learning coding, teenagers working on homework in the study space, a support group meeting in one of the conference rooms. Laughter and conversation spilled out into the night. The center had expanded twice already. 3 more were planned for next year in other Montana towns. And that wasn't even counting the initiatives in Idaho and Wyoming. A car pulled up, and Daniel Hawthorne stepped out. Collar turned up against the cold. "Couldn't stay away, could you?" Cara smiled. "You were just here 3 days ago. Board meeting tomorrow in Whitefish. Thought I'd stop by." He stood beside her, both of them looking at the building. "She'd be proud, you know, of all of this, of you. I think about her every day, about that night." "Me too." Daniel's voice was quiet. "I almost lost her, Cara. If you hadn't been on that road, if you hadn't stopped. But I did. You did." He turned to face her. "And you gave us both something precious. Time, closure, a chance to do something that mattered." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the snow fall. "Come on," Cara said finally. "I'll buy you dinner. We're testing the new menu tonight. I think you'll like it. Evelyn's chicken soup recipe. The real one, not the diner version." Daniel smiled. "She'd like that. Her soup in her center, helping people. It's perfect." As they walked toward the entrance, Cara glanced back one more time at the mountains, at the highway winding through them where everything had started, where one choice had led to all of this. She'd learned a lot in the past year, about business, about nonprofits, about dealing with boards and budgets and bureaucracy. But the most important lesson had come from Evelyn herself. delivered in those last weeks as they'd worked together on the center's design. Every act of kindness ripples outward, Evelyn had said. You never know how far those ripples will reach. You just have to trust that they matter, that you matter. Cara understood now. The scared woman in the ditch had become a friend, a mentor, a catalyst for change. And the waitress living paycheck to paycheck had become someone who could actually help her community heal and grow, all because of one choice on one stormy night. As she held the door open for Daniel, Cara silently thanked Evelyn Hawthorne one more time. Then she stepped inside into the warmth and noise and purpose, ready to keep building on what they'd started together. The dinner rush was in full swing. Cara moved through the dining room with practiced ease, greeting regulars by name, checking on new visitors. The space hummed with life, families at tables, college students working on laptops in the corner, an elderly couple who came every Tuesday for the early bird special. Daniel settled into a booth by the window, the same one where the three of them had shared pie after the opening. Cara brought him coffee without asking. Black, no sugar, the way he always took it. So, he said as she slid into the seat across from him, tomorrow's board meeting. You ready? For you all to approve the Wyoming expansion? Born ready. She grinned. I've got the site surveys, the community needs assessments, the budget projections. I meant for the other thing. Cara's grin faded. What other thing? Daniel pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned it to face her. On the screen was an email with the subject line, 60 minutes interview request. They want to do a segment on the initiative, on what we've built, on you. He watched her reaction carefully. It's a big platform, Cara. Could help with fundraising, with attracting more donors, with showing other communities what's possible. Cara felt her stomach tighten. I'm not the story. The center is the story. The people we've helped are the story. You're part of it whether you like it or not. The waitress who saved a billionaire's mother and turned it into a movement? People connect with that. It's human. It's inspiring. It's reductive. Cara ran her hand through her hair, frustrated. That makes it sound like some fairy tale. Like Evelyn waved a magic wand and poof, everything was perfect. It wasn't like that. It was work. It was risk. It was courage, Daniel interrupted quietly, which is exactly why people need to hear it. Do you know how many emails we get every week? Letters from people in small towns across the country who want to know how to start something like this, who feel stuck and hopeless and forgotten. And you think me on TV is going to help them? I think you showing them that one person can make a difference might give them the push they need to try. He leaned forward. Look, I get it. You didn't sign up for this. You just wanted to help someone. But that's exactly what makes your story powerful. Cara was saved from answering by Miguel, her head chef, appearing with 2 steaming bowls of soup. Boss, you gotta taste this. I think we nailed it. He set the bowls down with a flourish. The aroma hit Cara immediately, rich, savory, with that perfect blend of herbs that she remembered from that first night. She lifted a spoonful, blew on it, tasted. It transported her back, to that cramped cabin, to Evelyn's pale face and trembling hands, to the choice that had changed everything. It's perfect, she said softly. It's exactly right. Miguel beamed. Your mom's recipe would be proud. It wasn't my... Cara started, then stopped. In a way, Evelyn had become something like a mother to her in those final months. A mentor, a friend, a guide. Yeah, she would be. After Miguel left, Daniel tried the soup and nodded his approval. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the familiar ritual of a shared meal easing the tension. I'll think about the interview, Cara said finally, but I'm not promising anything. Fair enough. Daniel checked his watch. I should get going. Early meeting tomorrow. But Cara? He waited until she met his eyes. Whatever you decide about the interview, about any of this, thank you for everything, for her, for giving us time, for making that time matter. After he left, Cara stayed in the booth, nursing her coffee as the dinner rush gradually wound down. She watched her staff, people she'd hired, trained, mentored, people who were now supporting families, building careers, making their own choices about how to help their community. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Chen, the director of the new Idaho Center that had opened last month. First computer class had 47 people show up. We had to move to the bigger room. This is amazing. Then another from Marcus Webb in Wyoming. Just got approval for the daycare expansion. Breaking ground in April. Thank you for all your help with the proposal. Cara scrolled through her messages, each one a ripple. Each one proof that Evelyn had been right. The kindness did spread. The courage did multiply. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Is this Cara Miles? A woman's voice, older, with a thick accent. Yes, who's this? My name is Rosa Martinez. I live in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I read about your center in a magazine at my doctor's office. A pause. I have a building, an old grocery store my husband and I owned. He died last year, and it's been sitting empty. But maybe it could be something like what you built. For our town? Cara sat up straighter. Tell me about your town. Rosa talked for 20 minutes. About Las Cruces, about the poverty, about the lack of resources, about her dreams of honoring her husband's memory by helping their community, about feeling too old and too scared to try alone. But reading about you, Rosa said, about how you started with just kindness and courage, it made me think maybe I could try, if I had help, if someone could show me how. Cara looked around the center, at everything they'd built, at all the ripples already spreading outward. Then she thought about Evelyn's letter, about being named director of the Hawthorne Community Initiative, specifically to expand this work. Rosa, she said, I'd like to help. Can I have your email? I'm going to send you some information, and then I'm going to set up a call with our board. We have a process for supporting community-led initiatives like what you're describing. The sound of crying on the other end of the line. Happy crying. Thank you, Rosa whispered. Thank you. You don't know what this means. But Cara did know. She knew exactly what it meant to feel stuck and hopeless and forgotten, and she knew exactly what it meant when someone reached out a hand and said, "Let me help." After they hung up, Cara sat in the booth for a long time, holding her phone, feeling the weight of the choice in front of her. Daniel was right. The interview would amplify their work. It would reach more people like Rosa. It would create more ripples. But it would also mean stepping fully into the spotlight, becoming a public figure, having her life, her choices, her mistakes all examined and judged. Was she brave enough for that? She thought of Evelyn, using her last months to expose corruption despite the danger. She thought of Daniel, standing up to his uncle despite the family cost. She thought of Rosa, willing to try despite her fear and grief. And she thought of herself, pulling over on that highway when every rational reason said to keep driving. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was action despite it. Cara pulled out her phone and typed an email to Daniel. Tell 60 Minutes I'll do it, but on one condition, Rosa Martinez gets to tell her story too, and anyone else who's been inspired to start something in their own community. This isn't about me. It's about the movement. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The next morning, Cara stood in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to tame her hair into something professional for the board meeting. The woman looking back at her was different from the one who'd driven home through that blizzard a year ago. Not just the better clothes or the fact that she wasn't exhausted from a double shift. Something deeper had changed. She'd found her purpose. Her phone buzzed with Daniel's reply. Perfect. They'll love it. See you in Whitefish at 2 p.m. And Cara, Mom would be so proud of you. Cara blinked back unexpected tears. I'm proud of me too, she whispered to her reflection. The board meeting went smoothly. Wyoming expansion approved. New Mexico exploration authorized. Budget increased to support community-led initiatives. Cara presented her vision for training local leaders to start their own centers, creating a network of support rather than a top-down model. We're not trying to save these communities, she explained to the 12 board members watching her. We're trying to give them the tools to save themselves, to recognize their own strength, their own resilience. Afterwards, as board members filtered out, an older woman approached Cara. Judith Brennan, one of Evelyn's oldest friends who joined the board specifically to honor her memory. Evelyn knew, Judith said without preamble, that night when she went out in the storm. Knew what? That someone was trying to kill her. She suspected Richard, but she wasn't sure, and she couldn't bear the thought of dying without knowing if Daniel was involved. Judith's eyes were wet, so she staged her own test, walked out into that blizzard, and waited to see what would happen. Who would come looking? How they would respond? Cara felt cold. She could have died. She was dying anyway, and she was terrified of spending her last months surrounded by people she couldn't trust. So she took a chance. Judith gripped Cara's hand. And she found you, someone with no agenda, no connection, no reason to help except that it was right. You gave her back her faith in people, and that gave her the courage to do what needed to be done. I didn't know, Cara whispered. She never told me that part. Because it would have felt like manipulation, like she'd used you. Judith smiled sadly. But she didn't use you, dear. She just trusted that somewhere in that storm there was still goodness in the world. And there was. There was you. That evening, Cara drove back to the center, Judith's words echoing in her mind. The highway was clear tonight, no storm, no snow, just the last light of day painting the mountains gold and purple. She pulled over at the spot where she'd found Evelyn. Someone had placed a small memorial there, a cross with flowers, probably from a different accident, a different tragedy. But Cara added her own offering, a single white rose and a note that said simply, "Thank you for trusting me." 6 months later, the 60-minute segment aired. Cara sat in her apartment above the center, surrounded by staff and friends, watching herself on national television. It was surreal, seeing her own face on screen, hearing her own words played back. But they'd done what she'd asked. They'd focused on the movement, not the hero story. Rosa Martinez appeared, talking about the new Las Cruces Center that would open next month. Marcus Webb described the transformation in his Wyoming town. Sarah Chen showed their computer lab filled with people learning new skills. And yes, they showed the original center. They showed the soup, now called Evelyn's Special, on the menu. They showed the plaque by the door with Evelyn's photo and her quote about courage and kindness. But the segment ended not with Cara, but with a montage of all the communities starting their own initiatives. 15 new centers in various stages of development. Hundreds of people trained. Thousands of lives touched. One choice on one stormy night, the correspondent narrated over images of the growing movement. That's all it took to start a ripple that's now become a wave of community-led transformation across rural America. The Hawthorne Community Initiative continues to grow, but its leaders insist the real power lies not in wealth or resources, but in the simple decision to help when help is needed. To be brave when bravery is hard. To be kind when kindness costs something. The final image was of Cara standing in front of the center, the mountains behind her, looking directly at the camera. Evelyn Hawthorne taught me that every one of us has more power than we realize. The power to change a life, maybe just one life, maybe many. But it starts with a choice, your choice. What will you do with yours? As the credits rolled, Cara's phone exploded with messages, texts, emails, social media notifications. She ignored them all, looking instead at the faces around her, her team, her friends, her community. "Well," said Miguel, grinning, "guess we better get ready for a lot more attention." He was right. Within a week, they had 73 new inquiries from communities wanting to start their own centers. Donations flooded in. Daniel had to hire 2 more people just to handle the media requests. But the message that mattered most came 3 weeks after the segment aired. It was an email, short and simple. "Dear Ms. Miles, you don't know me, but I wanted to thank you. I'm a teacher in rural Tennessee, and I've been trying to get support for an after-school program for 2 years with no luck. Everyone said it was impossible, that we didn't have the resources, that I should just accept things as they are. But I watched your segment, and I thought, maybe it's not impossible. Maybe I just need to be brave enough to try differently. So I'm starting small, just me and 5 kids in a borrowed classroom. But it's a start, and it's because you showed me that starting is possible. Thank you for that courage." Jennifer Walsh. Cara read the email 3 times, then printed it and added it to a growing folder she kept in her desk. Stories of ripples, evidence of impact, proof that Evelyn had been right. One choice, One act of kindness, and the ripples spread forever outward. A year and a half after that first snowy night, Cara stood at Evelyn's grave. It was a cold December morning, the anniversary of her death, and Cara had made the drive to the private cemetery where the Hawthorne family rested. She placed fresh flowers, white roses, Evelyn's favorite, at the headstone. The inscription was simple: Evelyn Marie Hawthorne, beloved mother, fearless truth-teller, friend of the forgotten. 28 centers now, Cara said aloud as if Evelyn could hear. With 15 more in development. We trained over 200 community leaders last year. And we're starting an online platform to connect all the centers, share resources, build a real network. She paused, running her fingers over the cold marble. Daniel's getting married next month, to someone kind, someone who actually cares about the work. I think you'd like her. And Cara smiled, I started dating someone too. A teacher from the Wyoming Center. Nothing serious yet, but maybe, we'll see. The wind picked up, stirring snow from the branches overhead. I miss you, Cara whispered. I wish you could see what we've built. I wish you could see how far the ripples have spread. But I think you knew. Even at the end, I think you knew what was possible. She stood there for a long time, remembering. The soup, the symbol, the fear and the courage, the choice that had changed everything. Finally, as the sun broke through the clouds, Cara spoke one last time. I'm going to keep going. Keep building. Keep helping others find their own courage. That's my promise to you. That's how I'll honor what you taught me. As she walked back to her car, her phone rang. Daniel. Hey, are you at the cemetery? Just leaving. Why? Because I have news, big news. The MacArthur Foundation wants to partner with us. National expansion. Full funding for 100 new centers over 5 years. Cara stopped walking, her hand on her car door. 100? 100. Cara, we're going to change the whole country. Rural communities everywhere will have access to the resources they need, the support they deserve. His voice was thick with emotion. Mom's dream, but bigger than she ever imagined. She did imagine it, Cara said softly. She just needed someone to believe it was possible. After they hung up, Cara sat in her car, staring at the cemetery through her windshield. 100 centers. Thousands of lives changed. Tens of thousands, maybe more. All because she'd pulled over in a snowstorm. She started the car and headed back toward the center, toward the work that waited, toward the future they were building together. The mountains rose around her, solid and eternal, bearing witness to everything that had changed and everything yet to come. And somewhere, Cara liked to think, Evelyn Hawthorne was smiling, because courage had won, kindness had multiplied, and the ripples would continue spreading long after all of them were gone, touching lives they'd never know, changing futures they'd never see. That was the real secret, Cara understood now, the real magic. It wasn't about the money or the resources or even the buildings themselves. It was about showing people they mattered, that they had power, that their choices could change the world. One choice, one moment, one life saved in a snowstorm, and everything had followed from there. If this story inspired you to think about the ripples your own choices might create, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What's one act of kindness you could do today? And if you enjoyed this story, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps these stories reach more people who might need to hear them. Thank you for watching. And remember, you're braver and more powerful than you know. Your choices matter. Your kindness matters. You matter. Until next time, keep creating ripples.